the kind of mass and church that I had been used
Mhm.
to in England,
Yeah.
which was always Sunday morning, very relaxing, kind of a bit boring,
Uh-huh.
lots of elderly people.
Yeah.
And welcome to English with Lewis. Let's go! Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to English with Lewis. And today I have a wonderful guest. So, Jessica, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Lewis. So good to see you.
I know we've just been catching up. We've just been having a little chit chat because the last time we spoke was ages ago, or we could also say donkey's years ago, which is a nice British English slang phrase, which means a long time ago. Donkey's years ago. Jessica, had you heard this slang phrase
I
before?
have never heard that before. Honestly, we don't even use ages ago. I hear that on Peppa Pig, and my kids sometimes say that, but we don't even say that. So I love it.
So you've already learned something today. We can call it a
Exactly.
day.
Call it a day. It's good.
Excellent. So, first things first, Jessica, tell everybody about you. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? And so on.
Sure. Okay, well, I am a homeschool mom currently. I'm in the US, I'm in North Carolina. I have two little ones. I'm married, and I've been teaching English for, gosh, since 14 years now as a second language. And I really love it. We did it overseas first, and then I came back to the States and I got certified, and then I've been teaching online with various companies, and now I'm doing it on my own on Instagram, making reels and meeting lots of people, and I just love it.
Okay, wonderful. That is you in a nutshell, in a few
There you
words,
go.
in
Yeah.
summary. And let's start there. So, what made you actually want to become an English teacher in the first place?
Well, I actually graduated with an art degree. I'm an artist, so I my original plan was to be an art professor, so to go on and get my master's in art education. And I started with getting the education to be an art high school teacher, and I visited different high schools to do that. And I realized quickly that I didn't want to teach art like that. So in the meantime, I went ahead and got my degree, and my plan was to push on to be the professor. But then my husband and I found out about this really cool program where we could teach English with the Bible, and we
Mhm.
could live overseas in Italy. And so we did that for 2 years. We had already bought our first home in Arkansas, which, if you've never been to the US, Arkansas is very southern. It is a completely different culture. And we can talk about that later too. The
Uh-huh.
North and the South and the East and the West of the US is so big and so different. But we had already bought our house. My husband had a really good job. He's an engineer. So he thinks a lot differently than I do, very left and right brains.
Yeah.
Um, and anyways, we found out about this program. So we sold our house, and we're like, if you want us to do this, Lord, like we'll go for it. We jumped in, we did it. And teaching English like that, I got to meet so many people, and Italy's kind of a melting pot. So, you have lots of people from different cultures.
Mhm.
And seeing that many different people and meeting, so many different cultures that way was so interesting to me. So when we came back to the States, I pursued it further.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds like such a big step to make. And you had
Yeah.
bought a house, you'd settled down by the sounds of it, and you just
Mhm.
up and left to Italy.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, again, I'm a risk taker. My husband's very logical. He's a left-brained engineer. So for him, I think it was harder. For me, it's pretty easy to pick up and do new things. I like change.
Mhm.
But what was so interesting was that even though it was hard for him, he loved it, and it changed both of our lives a lot. So, yeah.
How did you persuade him and convince him to take this risk?
I remember sitting down with like a pros and cons list to
A
persuade
PowerPoint
him.
as well.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, we just kind of, we're Christians, so we just prayed about it, and we had to sell our house by, like, I think it was the end of June of 2010. So we bought our house like October 2009, and by
Mhm.
December, I was thinking about this grand idea.
Okay.
Um And it was in the recession too. So that made it even more like my husband's like, you're crazy. Like our families were like, you're insane. Why are you doing this? But I just really felt like this call to do it. And so I was like, let's just pray about it. If God doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen anyways. And so we had all of these showings, people coming to see our house, which a showing, you guys, is when someone comes to see your home, when it's on the market, when
Uh-huh.
it's for sale. And no one was interested. And the fees for the realtor, so the money we would have to pay for the realtor was going to outweigh anything we would have been in the hole. So we would have
Yeah.
owed money for the realtor, the home. And we had fully furnished our house too. So there was that. So everything was just not looking good. And we also didn't have support. So a lot of missionaries, they will approach different, their church family to sustain them while they're doing mission work. And we didn't have that at the time. And then a month before we left, two things happened. First thing was the elders of our church said that they wanted to fully support us. So
Hmm.
everything that we needed for these 2 years, they would take care of financially. So that was huge. And I remember feeling just so humbled that someone would want to do that for us. And we were young. I was like 23. I was really young. And so there was that. And then there was a realtor at our church, and she said, I'll take care of everything for you for free. I'm going to process this for you. If it goes through, you're not going to owe me anything. So my husband was at work. Again, this was about a month before we had to have everything
Hmm.
done. And his coworker was like, oh, you're selling your house? My husband's like, I'm trying to sell my house. And the guy's like, oh, where do you live? And so we told him, he's like, I've been looking for a house out there. The guy bought our house. He bought all of our furniture. Everything went through. We owed nothing.
Wow.
Um,
It sounds like your prayers were answered. And this was like,
yeah,
oh, we have no excuse now.
right. It was an obvious, like, go for it. So that was kind of our story.
Okay. And you mentioned that Arkansas is very southern, and there's a big difference between the
Mhm.
Southern American culture and what it's
Yeah.
like compared to the West Coast and the
Yes.
Northern East Coast. Uh,
Yes.
what's so different? Like, what is it like in the South?
It's very shocking if you haven't lived here before. Um, a lot of just their, let me think of a way to phrase this. The North, if you're above Virginia or
Uh-huh.
Ohio and up, they're very direct. So they're going to tell you if they think you're doing something silly, or if they don't like your outfit, they'll most likely tell you. But if you go to the South, someone will just smile and nod at you and tell you pleasantries. And so you don't really actually know what people are thinking half of the time.
But people lie to
Um,
you. They are
yes,
two-faced.
yes, they're two-faced. Yeah. And so that can be a very negative term. Like if you don't say that to someone, you guys, if you see them, don't say that they're two-faced or that they're fake. But it feels that way. But in
Uh-huh.
their culture and their mind, they think that they're being polite by
Okay.
not being offensive. But actually, to me, it's more confusing. Um, so it's very interesting. And they have a lot of manners as far as like titles. So all of the kids will call me Miss Jessica, even though I'm 37.
Uh-huh.
Um, we'll call like an 80-year-old Miss Eloise, or, my husband is Mr. Eric. In the North, we don't really do that. So actually, Lewis, when I went to London with my husband, we were traveling on our free time, and I went to a shop and I was saying, ma'am. And I didn't realize that we weren't supposed to do that. And she was so rude to me. And I just kept thinking, like, I'm saying, ma'am, I'm being polite. I was like sweating, like, what is happening? And she finally said, why do you insist on calling me ma'am? And then that was when I realized, right, that in
Yeah,
your
it's
culture,
weird.
yeah, okay, explain that to us, because it really threw me. Like, I didn't understand.
Yeah, it's strange because like I watch a YouTube channel which is called Jolly, and it's
Okay,
two Brits, two guys who are from near London, and it's all about food and travel.
okay,
And more recently, they've been going on a lot of road trips, and a few of them have been in the south of the United States. and they've been trying lots of great food. And then when they go to the restaurants, everybody seems really, really friendly, maybe like
Yeah.
overly friendly, perhaps.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
might be to do with like the tipping culture and tipping system. So then
Yeah.
in the US, you're kind of forced to tip like 20%, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, at least. Yeah.
Because like the servers, the waiters, waitresses don't really get a livable wage.
Yeah.
So then you have to tip, which
Right.
for me is very foreign. In the
Right.
UK and in many places in Europe,
Yeah.
you only tip a little bit when like the service has been exceptional, or if you've had a really good chat with the waiter and they've really helped you, then it's like,
Right.
okay, yeah, he deserves a tip.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in the US, even if you go to a bar and you get like a beer, like you sometimes have to tip, which when I went there, I was like, seriously, you've literally just opened a
Right.
bottle and given it to me.
Right. I
Why,
know.
why would I ever tip you?
I don't know.
But anyway, that's me going off on a tangent and
No, it's out of
changing the
control, Lewis.
topic.
They need to know if you come to the US, be prepared. The price is not what you see, especially now with the tablets that they'll flip around and it'll be like pick 20%, 15, or and you're watching them, so you're afraid they're going to damage your drink if you don't hit the 20%. So your $5 coffee is now a $7 coffee. It's crazy.
It's crazy. So
Yeah.
if you go to the United States, be prepared to tip or else. Or
Pay
else.
money. Yeah.
But no, the reason we were speaking about that is because in Southern America, people say ma'am, like M-A apostrophe A-M.
Yeah.
Hey, ma'am. And
Yes.
if somebody said that in the UK, first you get a weird look. And you're like, all right.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Because for me, it sounds like you're speaking to someone who is like quite a lot older than you, and also maybe like from the royal family. So then
That's what he told me in the jewelry store. She said, we only say that to our queen. And I just apologized profusely, like over and over, guys, is what that means. And then I think she saw that I was sincere and really had no clue. That
I think most people, if you did say this again in the UK, they'd laugh a little bit and smile and be friendly about it. And it's like, honestly, you don't need to call me ma'am. Like people would probably like take it on the chin and be like,
yes,
she's just, she's abroad. She's not used to the culture.
Yeah, poor thing. Yeah.
Bless her, Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, you do this in Southern America, but it doesn't happen in the rest of the country, right?
No, it's the exact same as you described. Like in Ohio, where I'm from, if someone was to say ma'am over and over or sir, they would be like, okay, come on, just call me Jessica. Don't call me Miss Jessica or ma'am. Makes me feel old, just like you said. So it's interesting. And then the longer you're around it, you start to kind of do some of those things. My kids say Miss and Mr. a lot. And it's funny because we have a little mom group. And sometimes instead of saying my friend so-and-so, Brittany or whoever, I'll say, oh, there's Miss Brittany, because I'm so used to saying Miss Brittany to my children. So it's funny.
I guess it rubs off on you. Being there for a long time, it rubs off on you. Nice phrasal verb, which means that basically who you spend time with and the people who you surround yourself with, their habits, culture, and behavior will gradually be adopted by you, whether you're conscious of it or not. So their ways of referring to other people just rubs off on you. And now you're starting to become a Southerner.
Don't say
it. But anyway, moving on, you went to Italy and you were teaching English through the Bible. What was this like? Because I will be completely honest, my mum is religious. She goes to church every Sunday. I used to go a little bit when I was really young with her. But then as I got older, I kind of just realized that I wasn't that interested. And my dad's not that into religion either. I respect all religions, of course, and I find it interesting speaking about these things. But what was it like teaching English through the Bible? How did you organize your classes and all of these things?
Well, I think we've already established that I'm kind of a, uh, what is the word? There's an English, I'm missing it, Lewis. There's an
A free
idiom.
spirit.
I fly, yes, I'm a free spirit, but I also fly by the seat of my pants.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I do this because it's kind of who I am, but also I was telling my husband this the other day that it's really hard for me to do routine things because I feel like when we do those things, we feel like we're in control. But if we're doing things that are big and extraordinary and impossible, it's when I see God the most, right? Because it's obvious that, we didn't sell our own house. It's obvious, that happened out of our hands.
Uh-huh.
So when I'm studying with different people, I like to kind of just open it up and I let them read it. And it's amazing how you can see the more that they talk, how God works in their own lives, just the way that they're reading the Bible. Because it is applicable. There's so much wisdom, and the older you get, the more you appreciate the application to your everyday life. So it was just fascinating to me to see how God would like chase after all these different people, whether they were from like the Middle East or, I had students from like Egypt or Italy or, just all these different places, and how his spirit was like chasing them with love, just the way that they would read the Bible. So it was incredible.
Excellent. And this reminds me, in fact, of when I was in that area of the United States. I've mentioned it previously that I was a soccer coach. So
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
drive from town to town in the south of the United States. And then every week, then I would teach people how to play football, British English, or soccer, American English. And I'd stay
Yeah.
with families. And of course, whenever you stay with host families,
Uh-huh.
you need to be very friendly, very polite, and you adapt to them essentially.
Right. Right.
And
You're flexible. Yeah.
I'm a very flexible person in general, and I was intrigued to see what people were like essentially. And I remember
Right.
being in Charlotte or near Charlotte, North
Okay.
Carolina,
Yeah.
and the family was very religious, and they asked if I wanted to go to church with them. So of course I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I had in my mind was the kind of mass and church that I had been used
Mhm.
to in England, which
Yeah.
was always Sunday morning, very relaxing, kind of a bit boring,
Uh-huh.
lots of elderly people,
Yeah.
and everybody would sing a little bit, but very monotonous.
Yeah.
And there was no real community apart from basically the pensioners of my town. And I
Mhm.
got to this church, which was very modern. It was huge. It was packed
Mhm.
full of people. And then everything seemed very different to everything I had previously experienced in regards to Christianity and religion. And they were
Mhm.
singing as if it was like a rock band. And I was like, what is going on? They had like t-shirts with the name of the church, and then
Oh,
they were
wow.
selling records that then go to help people who were in need.
Missions. Yeah.
I'm like,
Uh-huh.
it's like, what is this? Like, why
Right.
is it so different to church in England? So,
Yeah.
have you experienced this kind of church? Do you go to this kind of like modern church?
A modern church. Mine isn't that modern. But I think we're human, so we have different ways of connecting with God, and some people connect that way. But yeah, it's definitely not, it's not a religion. Sometimes when we think religion, we think, these are the things I must do, and then I can have this. But actually, the good news is that Jesus already took it for us, and our job is to believe and trust. So that's what I learned over and over in the scriptures is that, I'm a very independent person. I like to work, I like to do things, and that's all good, but it's by his grace. So I don't go to church. I don't do any of the things I do to earn his love or to earn salvation because it's already been done for me. And I think that's the freedom that we have. I explain it a lot, like now having kids, like once I had a child, it really just like blew my mind because there's nothing that my kids could do to earn my love. And there's nothing that they could do to stop me from loving them. The only thing that they could do would be to turn away from me. And that's their will, that's their freedom that we have.
Hmm.
But me as their mother, there's nothing that could stop. Like I'm always going to be chasing after them with love. So yeah.
It's unconditional love, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Yeah.
Perfect. Now let's return to Italy. How did you adapt to life in Italy, and what were the main differences between Italian
Yeah.
life and American life?
Yeah. I think when you said that you're a very adaptable person, you're very flexible. I think that's so important in life, just in general, to be that kind of person that can pivot and learn from our situation and take the good. But especially, especially like you said, when you visited the States, anytime you're traveling, you are a guest in someone else's home, in their country, in their city. And so having that humility and that desire to learn and to understand a different way of life, a different people. So I think that was the biggest thing, was just having that posture or that mindset of wanting to be flexible and wanting to learn from them.
Mhm.
Um, I'm naturally curious, but for me, I it was good for me to not know the language because it caused me to be quiet and to learn in a quiet way first
Uh-huh.
before talking so much, because a lot of the Italians they want to teach you things. They want to tell you, how they made their lasagna. They want to teach you how to make bread. They want you to come over and have coffee and stay for 3 hours. And so I really appreciated that. They have this sense of community that I think is lacking in the States, because we hustle, which means we work really hard. We
Mhm.
have a great work ethic. We have great visions, and we go for things, and nothing can stop us. That's our mindset.
Yeah.
But along the way, it's lonely, and there's a lack of community and a sense of like togetherness. So I really enjoy the community aspect. One of my favorite things was, this kind of a funny story that highlights that, is that they had invited us over, this family, for dinner, and they eat dinner at like 8, which I don't know in England what time is like a normal dinner there.
I mean, when I was growing up, it was always like 6 or 7, and now I think
Okay.
it's got a little bit later, so now it's more like 7.
Okay.
But then in Spain, people have dinner at like 10 o'clock. So I try
Right.
to be in the middle, like eight
Right.
o'clock, 8:30 for me is like the perfect balance.
Yeah. No, it's a nice time. It is. And so that was kind of their usual time. And so we got there for dinner, but in the States, if someone has you over, most of the time they want you to eat, and then
And
they're
get
ready for
out.
you to go. Get out. They've got a time slot. Jessica comes over to eat for 1 hour, and then we're going to the store for another hour. And then
Can
after
you
that,
fill
like,
out this Calendly?
yes, like and they have their entire years planned out. I mean, they know what they're doing next year, August 15th at 3 o'clock. And the Italians are the opposite. So, they invite us over for dinner, and it had already been an hour and a half. And I'm again like sweating because I'm like, we're disturbing them. I don't want to bother them. And I kept saying this in English to my husband, like, we gotta go. Like, I don't want to bother them. And the husband of the family, like, obviously, it's obvious I wear my emotions out. So he was like, where do you have to go, Jessica? Yeah. I mean, just full on. He had his coffee. It's like 9 o'clock. He's drinking an espresso. And I'm like, Enzo, I don't want to be a burden. Like, I'm so sorry that we've stayed this long. He's like, where do you have to go? We
Uh-huh.
want you to be here with us. And we remained until like 11 o'clock. So just that attitude of like being together and them appreciating each other is just really
Mhm.
beautiful.
No, it's nice. I think it's a very Mediterranean thing that people
Yeah.
are happy to just like go with the flow a lot more.
Yeah.
And like if something happens, if you have to change your plans, then it's no big deal. It's no biggie, you know? Just
Yeah.
relax, use some
Yeah.
hand
Just relax.
gestures, be like, eh. And another expression which I thought of, you said that basically if you are sad or angry or whatever, you can see this. Your emotions are very transparent. You could
Yeah.
also say that you wear your heart on your sleeve. If you
Yes.
wear your heart on your sleeve, basically, you show your emotions and you are a
Exactly.
very, let's say, sensitive or emotional person.
Yeah. Mhm.
Perfect.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you said you didn't speak Italian when you got there. Did you
Yeah.
manage to pick it up by the time you left?
We did. We learned I'll say I learned by ear, which means you learn mostly just by listening and kind of repeating what you're hearing in the right context. Again, my husband's very left-brained, so he always had a book, and he would want to see, everything structured out, and his pronunciation was better than mine, and he always had the right verb, but he wasn't as fluent because I was so eager to talk, to connect with people, that I would just say things, and then they would correct me, and I was fine with that. That helped me to learn. But yeah, I learned by ear, and I would say within about 3 months, I remember putting together a full sentence, expressing a thought. Yeah,
Bravo.
it's a good
Give
feeling
yourself
when
a pat on the back.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, it takes time, and everybody learns differently. So when you're learning English, or your second, third, whatever language, you really have to know what's best for you. Are you going to learn best with a book, or are you going to learn best just by, going to the pub or going out for dinner or whatever, and listening to people and kind of retaining that and spitting it back out?
Now, I guess what you said as well, your way of improving and becoming more fluent, highlights the fact that we shouldn't be scared of making mistakes, because it's a necessary step in improving your fluency and language skills. Because if you don't know the word, but you want to say the word, you're only really going to find out if you make something up and improvise and then hope that the other person is then going to either correct you or just like fill in the gaps of what you wanted to say. And it makes it much more memorable. If you have this moment where you're with Enzo having a coffee and you're trying to explain how you sold the house in Arkansas, and you're like, oh, the mortgage. And then, of course, that's the word. And that way it'll stick in your head, in theory, at least.
No, I think that's right. It links to your head better. Yeah.
And if you hadn't chosen to go to Italy, where would you have gone to teach English? Which country would you have selected, if not Italy?
That's a hard one. I don't know.
Where would conditional.
Yeah, boom. I probably would have went, gosh, maybe to France. I took French in high school, and I thought that I loved that because of the art and all of that. But I know now my personality type probably would not have meshed or went as easily with the French culture. Maybe, they're more reserved. They're kind of, different than the Italians, who are more hot, and we would say they're warm, inviting. Yeah, maybe France.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe in the future you'll move to France.
You never know.
Never know. Now, with all of this going on, then more recently, of course, you started posting videos mainly on Instagram. Where did that come from? Why did you decide to start posting educational content on social media?
Well, I'm an extrovert, and so I need people. I need to be able to talk to people. I need to be able to do things. And so that actually, I started posting around COVID time. My children were very small. And so when you have small children, you're needed 24/7, and it's such a beautiful, life-changing thing. But it's lonely. And so the beginning of all of this just started really out of wanting to connect with people. And I, drew on past experiences of things that I loved, and meeting people and cultures. And again, it's the same thing kind of with our house. I just threw it out there. I never, advertised anything. I never purposely tried to make it grow. Now that it's bigger, I do things on purpose, but really when it started, I kind of just put it out there and just prayed about it and just tried to enjoy it. So really it just came from a sense of joy and connection.
Perfect. And when I see your videos, I see that there is a kind of common denominator. There's a clear style. What would you say your style is? And then I'll say what I think. I'm putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot. I always try to make things that are practical. And I like to use verbs, because I feel like you can find out nouns of things fairly easily. You can look through a dictionary, which of course you can Google verbs too, but I feel like I try to do things in a way that you're not just going to be able to Google it to understand what I'm doing. So like if you were trying to translate, I sling something, a lot of times you're going to get the word throw, or I throw something, but you might not understand the slight difference in like slinging or flinging or smashing or whatever, just all the different synonyms that have these slight differences. I try to bring that to life.
No, interesting. I'd say that when I watch your videos, the main things I see is that you're acting things out. And then, as you said, you're using verbs and maybe not the common verbs that we immediately think of. So
Right.
then I think it's very easy and visual to watch this kind of video. And it's entertaining at the end of the day. That is what people want to see. If they want to learn a language, they want to have fun at the same time,
Right.
because then they're going to continue to be motivated to keep going and keep improving their English. So if anyone hasn't checked out Jessica's videos,
Well,
what are you waiting for?
thank you, Lewis. Yeah, make sure you're following Lewis too, which you probably already are, but share it. Yeah, share it.
So you post videos, but you've also fairly recently written a book. How did that come about?
Well, I love reading and I love stories. And funny enough, we're talking about like how my style is to kind of give you more interesting verbs and more everyday practical verbs that we actually use, but interesting ones. So again, that's kind of the stories that I like to read. Really, in English, we say really wordy stories, things that are very descriptive. And so when I was thinking about writing a book, and I'm kind of drawing on my past experience of learning Italian by ear, I really feel like the best way is to immerse yourself into a culture and into a language. But unfortunately, we don't always have that opportunity, right? To just jet set or to just move instantly to another culture, country, place. So when I wrote my book, I didn't want it to be a workbook. I didn't want it to be something that felt like a dictionary. I wanted it to feel like you're here, like you're in the US listening to real life conversations, and then picking up those words and being able to apply them when you're speaking. So when I wrote my book, that was my goal. And so the book is written in formats of little dialogues with these types of languages. And at the end, there's, I think there's like 8 little short stories that have a lot of these little words too in context. So it can be fun. You don't have to stick to, I sit on the chair, I turn to the side. You can play with the language, and you can even just our voices and the way that the rhythm of the language. I think we can see on Instagram. We can hear the different intonations. People listening to this interview, they can hear the way that we're speaking and be able to spit that back out. So I think all these little pieces come together to kind of formulate like the goals that I had for the book.
Interesting. Could you tell us a little bit about one of these 8 short stories?
One of my favorites is about an old man and his dog they're going to the park.
Okay.
And so you're just going to be listening to like or reading, like being the description of them, like getting to the park, like playing in the park, all these like different things, other than just saying like, I leave my house, I go to the park, I throw a ball, I come home. Like there's so many other pieces of that. And I think, as human beings, we want to express ourselves. So when we're learning a second, third language, and maybe it's out of necessity, right? Maybe you have to go to the States or England for work, and you feel like you can't like fully express yourself. These kind of stories and these dialogues will help you to better express who you are as a person and be able to like actually speak to people and not feel, for example, I felt mute for a really long time before I could actually speak to people. And that in itself is a great learning process. But, as human beings, like I said, I think we want to connect with people. So it's really about that.
Exactly. I mean, if you're mute in Italy, it's not a big deal. You can just be.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm kidding. I love you.
It's
Italy,
true, though.
I love you.
No, you're right. There's a lot of hand verbiage that, yeah.
100%. Now, time management. I personally am quite good at managing my time, being consistent, being very on top of things and getting
Mhm.
ahead of what I need to do before it becomes urgent. But
Yeah.
I don't have that many things in the way. I don't have that many excuses that are going to prevent me from being productive and getting my stuff done. You
Right.
do. You have two little ones. So, how do you manage to post videos, homeschool your children, write a book, and take care of other things? Like, what's the secret?
um, it's really just the Lord. Like, seriously, like I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus. And I think when I first became a mom, I tried to do everything on my own. And I just realized that I can't, that I'm a human. And so I think, like you said, before having children, I was able to do everything I had to do because I didn't really have anything standing in my way. And we're self-motivated people. We're entrepreneurs. We want to do the things. But then when you're in a hard spot, when you really have to manage your time and make hard choices, the Lord really taught me to see like the importance of discipline and having wisdom about, even if we're doing laundry as a family, like enjoying that moment, because then when it's time for me to work, I'm going to focus on work.
Mhm.
So just having, and then praying about like, if this isn't something that's going to be beneficial to me, take it away from me. And again, that's that freedom that I have in Jesus, is that it's not all up to me. The thing that I tell my kids and other people is you step out and you find out if God's going to bless it, he'll let it prevail and he'll bless you. And if it's not what you want to do, then you can learn to pivot and you can be flexible. So I think I've learned to pivot and do what works for me right now in this season. I do have a lot of goals and dreams and things I want to do, but it's that discipline and that self-control, to wait on God's timing and do what you can where you are. So
Mhm.
even though I'm like you and I can just fill my day 24 hours with things because I enjoy doing things, right now is not the season. So then I have to look at what time do I have, and then, you know, maximizing that time.
Exactly. I guess it's all about prioritizing what's the
Yeah.
most important at any given moment. And then from that point, you can really have a look at what time slots you've got available to
Right.
get stuff done. Um,
Yeah.
but no,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's motivating as well for anyone who maybe is bringing up some young children and you've got a full-time job and you've got a really hectic lifestyle,
Yeah.
trying to, I guess, take advantage of these dead times where maybe you're driving and you could listen to a podcast in
Yeah.
English, or maybe
Yes.
you are cooking, you're chopping up some
Yes.
vegetables and you could be
Yeah.
listening to this conversation as we speak. So
Exactly.
it's all about
Yeah.
prioritizing and trying to find out what really matters for you. And then from
Mhm.
there, you can find these little slots where you
Mhm.
can reach your goals and
Mhm.
prioritize. And
Yeah.
you mentioned goals. I'm curious, what are your goals moving forward? We were recording, well, we were
Mhm.
talking before we started recording, and I was saying that my goal is to be financially free. And of course, I want to make more money and build a successful business whilst
Right.
doing things that I enjoy doing, which is creating content and teaching English. So,
Mhm.
how exactly I'm going to do that is still to be decided.
Right.
But it's all about the journey, not the
Yeah,
destination.
it really
So
is. Yeah.
that's my main goal to, in the next few years, become more financially free. And
Mhm.
who knows, maybe start a family. We will see.
Yeah.
But in that case, I need to be as productive as possible before that happens.
Right. Prepare. Yeah.
Exactly. Get ahead
Yeah.
as much as possible, years ahead.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, what about you? What are your objectives, aims, and goals moving forward?
Oh, simplifying life. Just like what we're talking about, I'm a person that, I like to do lots of things. I have lots of interests. I'm very curious. But just also like what we're talking about, enjoying the everyday moments, because it really is the journey. We're going to wake up 10 years from now and my son's going to be 18 in 10 years. And so I just think, I'm in a place now where I'm thinking, how am I going to enjoy these 10 years? Like, how am I going to make the most, of every moment and enjoy making memories? And so I think for us, that just looks like making sure that we're not hustling too much, that we're not working too much. It's good to be responsible, but again, I don't know. I just feel like life is such a gift and nobody's promised tomorrow. And so I just really try to like keep that as my mindset, that every day is a fresh day. And finding joy in the things that we're doing. Because I love to work. So if I'm not careful, if I don't discipline my mind to find joy, I'll just work. My kids are with their grandparents this week for 4 days, which we do like once a year. And of course, my goal while they're gone is to work, right? To work and to get ahead and to do all these things. But I have a really good friend that's kind of the opposite of me. And she's always reminds me, like, make sure you do something fun, do something like relax for a minute and then go tackle what you have to tackle. So I would just say the goal is just to enjoy every moment and to be full of peace and joy.
I mean, I think that sounds like a perfect way to end this interview and chat, with a little bit of positivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up. And for those of you who didn't know Jessica earlier, now you know everything about her.
There you go.
Yeah, we had a chat about Italy, about Arkansas, about South Carolina, learning languages, social media, and so on and so forth. And if you have any questions for us and you'd like to get to know a bit more about Jessica, do not hesitate to leave a comment. And if you want to check out her book as well, let us know, and I'll put a link in the description. So maybe you can read about the man and his dog. Dun,
there you
dun,
go.
dun.
Yes. Check it out.
Also, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you next time.